They gave me a joke apron for Father's Day. It said "the spare dad" in bright red letters, stitched across the chest like it was funny. Everyone laughed. Even my wife. Even my kids. I stood at the grill, flipping burgers in the summer heat while the rest of them sipped lemonade under the shade, not offering to help, not even acknowledging the effort. Just laughter and a few offhand comments like, "Don't burn the veggie ones, spare dad. And that's your new name now, huh?" I smiled. Or at least, I think I did. Something in my face moved. I kept my head down and let them joke. My name is Greg. I'm 43. Been married 19 years. 3 kids, 15, 12, and 9. I'm not some tragic figure. I'm just a guy who did what he thought was right. Worked a regular job, paid the bills, did the carpool runs, handled school lunches, dentist appointments, laundry when needed. I didn't always get it perfect, but I was there. I was steady. I was reliable. And somewhere along the way, I stopped being anything else. You don't notice the shift right away. It starts small. The missed thank yous. The rolled eyes when you ask for help unloading groceries. The forgotten coffee order even though you've been getting the same one for 7 years. And then you get a card on Father's Day that says, "We love you," even if you're not the fun one. A joke, supposedly. But the paper still sits in the trash, crumpled and greasy from the burger grease on my hands when I threw it away. I should have seen it earlier. How they treated me like the backup parent. How anytime something went wrong, bad grades, missed practices, sibling fights, it was, "Where were you, Greg?" But when things went right, that was Michelle. That was Mom. My wife, the shining star. She's magnetic. The kind of person who walks into a room and people notice. PTA president, active in the neighborhood group chat, organizes events, bakes for the bake sale, does Pilates with the moms at the country club. Everyone loves her, including the kids. I don't resent her for that. Not exactly. It's not her fault she's likable. It's not even her fault the kids lean more toward her. What gets me is that she let it happen. No correction. No, your dad helped too. No, Greg's the one who made that happen. Just silence, letting me fade into the background until I became a punchline. That Father's Day, the signs were all there. My youngest, Ellie, handed me the gift bag with the apron in it and laughed before I even pulled it out. She thought it was hilarious. The older two didn't say much, just kind of smirked. Michelle? She kissed me on the cheek and said, "Don't be such a grump. It's cute." Then she handed me the spatula and said, "Fire up the grill, chef spare." So I grilled. Quietly, like I always do. I watched them talk and laugh and play lawn games while I stood over the heat, flipping meat, brushing on sauce, listening to my own heartbeat get a little heavier every time someone called me spare dad, like it was normal now. It wasn't just Father's Day. That was just the moment I started paying attention. I began to look at things differently after that. A few days later, I noticed my oldest, Mason, came home from soccer practice and walked right past me without a word. Michelle called from the kitchen, "How was practice?" And he lit up, sat at the counter, and talked for 10 minutes straight. I was sitting right there. I asked one question, "Did you score today?" And he shrugged. "Nah," he said. That was it. A week after that, my middle one, Sam, had a science fair. I took off work to be there. Michelle had a meeting. I stood by his project the whole time, clapping when the judges stopped by, taking pictures, encouraging him. He barely looked at me. When Michelle showed up an hour late, he ran to her like she had rescued him from a hostage situation. "You made it," he shouted. I was invisible. She gave me a smile like, "See? I came." And just like that, her being late was forgiven, and my being there the whole time meant nothing. I know kids lean toward one parent sometimes. I know it's not always personal. But the thing is, they used to look up to me. I remember Mason asking me to teach him how to tie a tie. Sam used to crawl into my lap with books he could barely carry. Ellie would wait by the door for me to come home, every single day. Now, Ellie rolls her eyes if I don't get her juice the right way. Sam complains that I breathe too loud. Mason straight up ignores me unless I'm driving him somewhere. I kept telling myself it would pass, that they were just growing up. But then I started noticing how Michelle talked about me. Not to me. About me. To her sister. To her friends. On the phone. He means well, but he's not exactly present. He doesn't get how things work anymore. It's like having a fourth child sometimes. Those words cut deep. But I didn't say anything. I told myself I was being sensitive. Overthinking. Mishearing. Then came the cookout. Not Father's Day, just a regular Saturday in June. Michelle's parents came over, along with her brother and his wife. The whole backyard was set up, balloons, snacks, pool toys. Not for me, of course. Just a summer gathering. At one point, I was carrying a folding chair out to the lawn when I heard Michelle's mom say, "Greg's still doing the heavy lifting, huh? At least he's good for that." She laughed. Michelle added, "He likes having a job. Makes him feel important." Everyone laughed. I wasn't seen as a partner. I was the help, the extra, the afterthought. Later that night, after everyone left, I sat on the back deck alone. The lights were off. The kids were inside watching a movie. Michelle was scrolling through her phone. I looked out at the grill, still greasy from dinner, the chairs still a little muddy from the kids' feet. And I felt it, that quiet ache. The sense that I wasn't needed. Not really. Just tolerated. Like a well-worn rug. Still in the house, but no one notices it anymore. The final nudge came a few days later. Ellie had a friend over. They were making bracelets or slime or whatever it was. I heard her friend ask, "Where's your dad?" And Ellie replied, without even looking up, "Oh, he's just around. He's not really part of stuff." Not really part of stuff. I don't think she meant it to hurt. She said it so casually, but I felt it like a punch to the ribs. That night, I opened a drawer in my study and pulled out a backpack. Just a small one. Threw in a couple pairs of clothes, my toothbrush, my passport. Grabbed $40 from the junk drawer, my phone, charger, headphones. I looked around the room. Photos of smiling kids, a framed World's Okayest Dad mug from 5 years ago, books no one had touched in months. Then I walked down the hall, past the kitchen, past the living room, past Michelle sitting cross-legged on the couch. She didn't even look up. I walked out the door and closed it gently behind me. I didn't leave a note. Not yet. I stayed in a motel that night. Cheap, quiet. I laid on the stiff mattress, staring at the ceiling. For the first time in years, no one needed anything from me. No one asked for juice, or a ride, or a clean uniform. Just silence. And in that silence, I started thinking about who I used to be. Who I might be again. A week passed. I didn't check my phone much. Turned off location tracking. Paid cash for everything. I figured they'd assume I was sulking, maybe fishing. Maybe just off on a walk. They probably didn't think I'd actually leave. I didn't think I'd actually leave. Then one night, I checked my phone. I had texts. From Michelle. A couple. "Where are you? Are you coming back?" Then, "If this is about Father's Day, you're being ridiculous." But it was one comment that made me stop. On an old Facebook photo of me and Ellie at a carnival, someone had commented. Her account. Her real account. It said, "Please come home. We miss you." And just like that, the silence broke. But not in the way they expected. Because I wasn't going back. Not yet. Not without changing everything. Not without them finally seeing what life looked like without me. And not before I made sure they truly understood what it meant to be the spare dad. The morning after I read Ellie's comment, I sat in the stiff motel chair with my phone clutched in my hand. I kept reading those 5 words over and over again. "Please come home. We miss you." I tried to feel something soft, something like warmth or reconciliation, but it didn't come. Not right away. What I felt was this dull ache in my chest, like a bruise I didn't know I had. Because the truth is, I wanted to believe it. I wanted to believe my absence was felt in a real, meaningful way. That maybe they'd finally noticed the invisible man had left the room. But when I clicked on the post to see who else had said anything, there was nothing. No replies. No other comments. No Michelle. No Mason. No Sam. Just silence. I didn't reply to Ellie. Not yet. I was watching now. Listening. Waiting. I stayed in that motel for another 3 days, surviving off diner coffee and fast food. I kept the TV on in the background to drown out my thoughts, but they always crept in anyway. I'd think about the last time Sam gave me a hug that wasn't out of obligation, or how Michelle used to trace circles on my arm when we'd watch TV. Little things that had vanished without anyone ever announcing their departure. Then the calls started coming. Not just texts, actual phone calls. The first one was from Michelle. I let it ring out. Then Mason. That surprised me. Then her sister. Then the school. I guess they'd finally noticed I wasn't showing up to the usual pickups. Voicemails piled up, but I didn't listen. Not until I saw the one that came from my work. "Hey Greg," my manager's voice came through. "Just checking in. Michelle called us. Said you were dealing with something personal. I approved the time off for now, but let me know if you need anything. We've got your back." Michelle had called my job. Without even asking me. Just stepped in and started controlling the narrative. That's when I felt the shift. This wasn't concern. This was damage control. She wasn't worried about me. She was worried about what people would say, about what her friends would whisper, what the PDA moms might wonder. A husband gone missing? That would raise eyebrows. A husband who just left without a word? That would tarnish the image. And Michelle, God love her, lived for the image. She had curated our life like an Instagram page before Instagram was even a thing. Matching holiday pajamas, family portraits on the beach, handwritten thank you notes to teachers, signed from the Thompsons. Our home was a well-oiled machine of optics, and I was part of the furniture, always present, never noticed. That realization burned. And then came the betrayal. It happened exactly 9 days after I left. I had just gotten back to my motel room with a paper bag full of tacos when my phone buzzed with a message from an old friend, Caleb. We hadn't talked in a few months, but we used to play pickup basketball together before life got in the way. He sent me a screenshot. It was Michelle's Facebook page. She had posted a long, carefully written update. I wasn't going to say anything, but after all the questions, yes, Greg has taken some time to himself. It's been a hard few months, and we've been working through things privately. Please respect our space, especially for the sake of our kids. They are the true victims in this. That word, victims, hit me like a brick. She had painted me as the one who abandoned them. She framed it like I had vanished in a fit of selfishness, leaving her to pick up the pieces. No mention of the years I'd been dismissed. No hint of the mockery on Father's Day. No acknowledgement of the isolation she'd allowed to grow between me and the kids like a wall she helped build. Just that soft, manipulative tone, designed to get sympathy, designed to make sure everyone knew she was the one left behind. Caleb followed the screenshot with a message. You good, man? Want to talk? I didn't reply. I just stared at the post. Read it twice. 3 times. The comments were worse. Oh, Michelle, stay strong. You're such a good mom. He'll come to his senses. Men are so weak these days. My husband pulled something similar. Took him a month to realize what he lost. My kids had liked the post. Mason even commented, "We love you, Mom." I went numb. There was no better word for it. Just numb. Like someone had switched off all the dials inside me and left me in grayscale. I put my phone face down on the bed and stared at the ceiling for what must have been an hour. Then I got up, grabbed my wallet, and walked down the block to a 24-hour diner. I ordered a coffee and sat there until sunrise. I wasn't angry. Not yet. That came later. The anger came when I listened to the voicemails for the first time. Michelle's voice was calm. Cold. Greg, I don't know what this is. If it's a midlife crisis or some cry for attention. But it's not fair to the kids. You made your point. Come home. Or don't. But stop playing games. Sam's voice came next, awkward and forced. Hey, Dad. I don't know if you're mad or what, but Mom says you'll come back soon. Ellie cried a little. Mason said it's dumb. I don't know. Then a long pause. Then Ellie. A soft voice, barely audible. Daddy? I'm sorry if we were mean. I didn't mean it. Can you come tuck me in again? I miss you. And finally, Mason, the oldest. The one who used to beg me to play catch in the driveway. His voice wasn't angry. It was annoyed. Okay, whatever this is, you've made your point. Mom says you're punishing us. That's real mature. Grow up. That's when the anger came. Because she had turned them against me. Slowly. Methodically. And now, she was planting the idea that I was abandoning them. Like I was the unstable one. Like she was the anchor and I was the one drifting. But I wasn't the one who left. I was pushed. Bit by bit. Smirk by smirk. Joke by joke. Until I finally got the message, you're not wanted. And now that I was gone, I was the villain. I opened my laptop that night and started typing. Not to them. Not to Facebook. Just to myself. Everything I remembered. Every moment I felt like a ghost in my own home. The Christmas where they forgot to include me in the family photo. The birthday when I got an Amazon gift card and a plastic cup that said, "World's okayest dad," while Michelle got diamond earrings and a handmade scrapbook. The times I had to beg for family dinners without phones at the table, only to be told I was killing the vibe. I wrote until my fingers ached. Then I made a plan. I wasn't going to storm back in with a speech. I wasn't going to beg for my place again. I was going to watch, to listen, to let them unravel without me. Because the truth was, I had been the glue. They just didn't know it. Not yet. But they would. Starting with the little things. The school forms that didn't get signed. The carpool that didn't run. The forgotten soccer game. The lost library book. The mystery stain no one cleaned. I wasn't going to fix it. Not this time. And when it came time to make a real choice, when they needed me and expected the old Greg to show up, smiling and quiet and dependable, I was going to make sure they understood what they lost. Not in anger, in silence. Because nothing is louder than the absence of someone who used to say yes. And the loudest silence was yet to come. I didn't go home. Not the next day. Not the next week. And if I'm being honest, there were nights I wasn't sure I'd ever go back. Not out of spite. Not out of pride. Just because I didn't think I could walk through that front door and pretend things were normal again. Because nothing about it had ever really been normal. Not the way I was treated. Not the way I was erased. So I stayed gone. But staying gone came with a cost. After 2 weeks in that motel, the walls started closing in. Not just metaphorically, I mean literally. There was a leak in the ceiling above the bathroom. The TV only played static half the time. The Wi-Fi cut out every other hour. The towels smelled like bleach and mildew, and the air conditioner rattled like a dying lawnmower. And I was running out of cash. I'd left with $40 and a card I hadn't used much, an emergency credit card Michelle and I shared. She must have shut it off after the Facebook post, because it got declined at a gas station when I tried to fill up. That was the first time I felt something close to panic crawl into my throat. I had a bit of money in a personal savings account. Not much. Just the leftover paychecks I'd stashed from side gigs over the years. Birthday money. Christmas bonuses. But it wasn't meant for escape. It wasn't meant to survive on. I needed a plan. So I moved. I found a small studio apartment above a tire shop on the edge of town. It smelled faintly of rubber and old coffee, but it had a working stove, a bed that didn't creak like a haunted house, and enough space to stretch my arms without bumping into furniture. I paid the first month's rent in cash, told the landlord I'd get a job nearby, and promised to stay quiet. He didn't ask questions, just handed me a key. That place became the cocoon I didn't know I needed. No pictures on the walls, no toys underfoot, no laughter in the next room that didn't include me, just quiet. And for a while, that silence was sharp and heavy. But slowly, very slowly, it softened. Became something I could breathe in. I started waking up early. Not because I had to, just because I wanted to. I'd make coffee, sit on the narrow balcony with a chipped mug, and watch the sun rise through a tangle of power lines and rooftops. I'd take walks to the park nearby, sit on benches, and listen to strangers talk. Sometimes I'd strike up conversation with old men walking their dogs or teenagers waiting for the bus. I hadn't done that in years. Just talk to people with no agenda, no errands, no pressure. It was strange how the absence of responsibility made me feel alive again. Still, there were hard days. I missed Ellie the most. Her tiny voice on that voicemail replayed in my head more times than I'll admit. I missed Sam's dry humor, even when it came laced with preteen attitude. I missed the way Mason used to sneak chips from the pantry late at night, thinking I didn't notice. And yes, I missed Michelle too. Or at least, the version of her I used to believe in. But every time I thought about going back, I remembered that apron. The spare dad. And I remembered the way they laughed while I stood at the grill, sweating, unthanked, unseen. I couldn't go back to that. So I moved forward. I took a part-time job at a local hardware store. Nothing glamorous. Just stocking shelves, helping people load mulch into their trunks, sweeping aisles. But it felt good to do something with my hands again. To be needed, even if just to explain the difference between two kinds of screws. The manager, Luis, was a short guy with bad knees and a loud laugh. He didn't ask about my past, just trained me, handed me a uniform, and told me to show up on time. I did, every day, and slowly, I felt myself standing a little taller. One day, Luis tossed me a clipboard and said, "You're good with customers. Want to help run inventory next month?" I hadn't been offered something in years. Not like that. Not based on my merit. Not based on being seen. I said yes. And then something strange started happening. I started writing again. I used to journal in college. Nothing serious. Just thoughts, sketches of stories, overheard conversations I wanted to remember. But one night in the apartment, I found a half-used notebook in my backpack. I opened it, and I wrote. At first it was just memories. A story about Mason's first lost tooth. A list of things Ellie used to say wrong, like Bissetti and Liberi. A moment when Michelle danced barefoot in the kitchen with the kids, and I stood in the doorway thinking this is happiness. Then the memories turned into letters. Not ones I planned to send, just things I needed to say. Things I never got to. To Michelle, you stopped looking at me like I mattered. You stopped asking if I was okay. And maybe I stopped showing it, but I needed that. To Mason, you're old enough to understand. And one day, I hope you look back and ask yourself if you were kind. Because I was trying, even when you didn't see it. To Sam, you're smarter than you let on. Don't bury your feelings like I did. Speak, loud and clear. To Ellie, I miss you more than air. If I could only hear one voice again, it would be yours. I filled 2 notebooks that month. At work, I kept moving up. I started managing the store's weekend schedule, then helped with supplier calls. Louise started leaning on me like I was part of the backbone. And I was. It felt good to be essential. A regular customer, older guy named Arthur, started bringing me coffee some mornings. You remind me of my son, he said one day. Only difference is, you show up. That meant more than he knew. I joined a local library club on Tuesdays. Just a group of folks who shared stories, read chapters aloud, and gave feedback. I didn't say much at first, just listened. But one day, I read a short piece I'd written about Father's Day. Not my Father's Day, just a version. Fictional, technically. About a man who flipped burgers while his family joked behind his back. When I finished reading, the room was quiet. Then a woman in her 60s leaned forward and said, "That hurt in the best way. Whoever he is, I hope he finds peace." I just nodded. They didn't know it was me, but it was the first time I'd been hurt in years. I started feeling stronger. Not just physically, but mentally. Emotionally. I was clearer, sharper. I'd go days without thinking about the house I left. Without checking Michelle's Facebook. Without wondering if Ellie was still waiting at the window. But the past always finds a way back in. It started with a letter. No stamp. No envelope. Just slid under the door while I was at work. I came home late, groceries in one arm, and saw the folded paper on the doormat. My name scribbled in thick black pen. Greg. Just that. Inside was a single line. "I'm sorry. I didn't see what I was doing. Please come home." No signature. But I knew the handwriting. Michelle. I sat on the floor for a long time with that note in my hand. My keys were still in my fist. I didn't move. Didn't blink. Just let it sit there in my lap like a weight. I wanted to believe it. Part of me needed to believe it. But I didn't trust it. Because I didn't see what I was doing wasn't the same as "I'll change." It wasn't enough. A week later, I got another message. This time on Instagram. From Mason. It was a photo of my old toolbox. The one I kept in the garage. It was open, tools scattered. Ellie wanted to build something for school. Mom didn't know where anything was. Said to ask you. No, how are you? No, we miss you. Just a request. The old pattern, trying to reassert itself. But I didn't reply. Because for the first time in a long time, I wasn't desperate to be needed. I wanted to be wanted. And until that was true, I wasn't going anywhere. I'd hit bottom. I'd felt the crush of being overlooked, unwanted, unloved. But now I was rising. And if they wanted me back, they were going to have to climb too. I didn't throw the letter away. I didn't respond either. I folded it neatly, placed it in the top drawer of my desk, beside my journal, a half-finished short story, and the apartment key I never used because I never locked my door, and I left it there. Like a relic. Like something I might study again later. Not because I believed Michelle's apology, but because I wanted to see if time would change the way it felt. Spoiler, it didn't. The letter read like someone covering their tracks, not someone trying to find the road back to me. There was no mention of Mason's comment calling me immature. No acknowledgement of the spare dad, Apron. Nothing about the Facebook post that made me look like I'd deserted my family to go soul-searching in the woods. It was vague, convenient, and exactly what I'd expect from someone who wanted forgiveness without offering change. So I did nothing. And for a while, that was enough. But then, something shifted. It started with the school district. Louise had asked me to pick up some donated tools from a high school across town. One of those community partnership things where local businesses pitch in. I pulled up to the loading dock, signed some forms, and while I was waiting, I wandered into the front office to ask about future drop-offs. And that's when I saw Ellie. Through the glass panel in the hallway. She was sitting alone on a bench, knees tucked to her chest, backpack at her feet, head down. I froze. It was like a movie reel snapping to life in my brain. Every time she used to wait for me at the door with her little hands pressed to the glass. The way she'd sprint across the driveway screaming, "Daddy's home," like it was the highlight of her week. I hadn't seen her in almost a month. She looked taller, older, sadder. I stepped back before she could see me. My hands were shaking. A secretary walked by, noticed me hovering. Need something? I cleared my throat. The girl on the bench, Ellie Thompson. Is she waiting for someone? She glanced. I think so. Poor thing. Her mom forgot it was early dismissal. Bus already left. We called but no answer. Happens a lot lately. I nodded, said thank you, and left. But the seed was planted. Happens a lot lately. That wasn't like Michelle. For all her flaws, she never missed pickups. She lived for the PDA image, the best mom ever mug on her desk, the organized chaos of school calendars. So what had changed? On the drive home, I kept wondering if things were cracking. If the illusion was finally unraveling without me there to silently patch the holes. A week later, Sam called me. Not texted. Called. I almost didn't pick up, but something told me I should. Hey, he said, voice low. Hey. Long pause. Do you still have the key to Grandma's place? I blinked. What? Grandma and Grandpa's cabin. The one by the lake. Mom said you were keeping it after they passed. I am. Another pause. Can we go there? I sat up straighter. Why? He hesitated. Because. Mom's losing it, Dad. Mason's never home. Ellie cries all the time, and she's mad at us constantly. She says she's overwhelmed. She burns food. She sleeps through alarms. She forgot to pick Ellie up twice. My chest tightened. I wasn't happy to hear it, not exactly. But I was listening closely. She won't let us talk about you, he added quietly. If we do, she changes the subject. Mason tried to ask why you left, and she snapped at him. And what do you think? I asked. He didn't answer. Sam, I think you were always the one keeping it all together, he said finally. That hit harder than I expected. I told him the cabin was still mine. Paid off, maintained through a small property management company I used in the summers. It had been in my family since I was a kid. Michelle hated it, said it smelled like mildew and boredom. The kids only ever went once a year, but I kept it for myself. After we hung up, I sat in the kitchen of my small apartment, staring at the cracked tile countertop. And that's when the idea started forming. Not revenge in the fire and fury sense, but something cleaner, quieter, a plan rooted in clarity. Because I finally saw it for what it was. Michelle had built a house of mirrors, and I had been holding the flashlight, the glue, the scaffolding. Without me, things weren't just messy, they were fragile, unstable. One strong gust, and the whole facade would come crashing down. So I decided to let it fall. But this time, I'd control the wind. The first step? Establishing silence as a weapon. I made a second phone call, this one to my lawyer. He was an old college friend named Ben, a quiet, detail-obsessed man who loved contracts the way other people love crossword puzzles. I hadn't spoken to him in a while, but when I explained what was going on, he didn't hesitate. You're still legally married, he said. But if you're planning to make a move, you need to know your rights. I don't want to burn the house down, I said. But I want her to know I'm not the spare anymore. I want control. Then we start with financial autonomy, he said. You've got the cabin, right? Still in your name only. Yeah. Perfect. Let's keep that protected. Let's also draft a financial separation agreement. Nothing permanent yet, but it'll make her aware you're serious. And the kids. You've got every right to seek partial custody if it comes to that. You haven't abandoned them. You've created space. There's a difference. Ben got to work. Meanwhile, I focused on something more immediate, rebuilding my network. Because here's the truth most people don't talk about when you disappear. You become a ghost in more ways than one. People stop calling. They assume you're broken, unstable, a mystery they'd rather not unravel. And the people who do reach out usually want something. So I started small. I reconnected with Caleb, the guy who sent me the Facebook screenshot. We grabbed lunch. He asked me what happened. I told him the truth, not the polished version Michelle had fed to her followers, but the messy, quiet, invisible erosion of respect over time. He didn't flinch. Damn, he said. I knew something was off. You were always solid. I figured maybe you had a health scare or something. Nope, I said. Just reached my expiration date. He leaned back. You thinking of going back? Eventually, I said, but not without leverage. He raised an eyebrow. What kind of leverage? The kind that makes them realize I was the center, not the spare. Caleb worked in event logistics, weddings, fundraisers, galas. He had contacts everywhere. And when I told him I had a plan involving the cabin and the kids, he offered to help. You want to throw a party? He asked. Not exactly. More like a reset. I'm in. And just like that, I had my first ally. Next, I reached out to the property manager at the cabin, asked for a deep clean, a stocked pantry, firewood delivered, linens refreshed, paid extra to expedite it, told them a special family gathering was happening. They were happy to help. Then I called Sam. Told your mom you're going camping. Yeah. She didn't argue. That told me more than I expected. I'm picking you three up next Friday, I said. Don't bring electronics. Just clothes and an open mind. Is this a rescue mission? He asked. No, I said. It's a mirror, so you can all see clearly. Sam didn't push further. Just said, okay. The following days moved like a quiet storm. Ben finalized the draft. Caleb arranged a few local friends to help with setup, nothing dramatic, just a few things to make the cabin feel less like a dusty retreat and more like a memory factory. String lights, a fire pit, a portable projector for old home videos I pulled from a hard drive Michelle didn't know I had. And then came Friday. I pulled up outside the house I hadn't seen in over 5 weeks. It looked the same, but something in the air felt different. Staler, weaker, as if the place had aged without me. The front door opened. Sam stepped out with a duffel bag. Mason followed, dragging his feet. Then Ellie, clutching a stuffed bunny. Michelle came to the doorway but didn't step out. Our eyes met. She didn't wave. Neither did I. I nodded at the kids. Let's go. And without a word, they piled into the car. I didn't speak on the drive. Neither did they. But the silence wasn't heavy. It was full. At the cabin, I let them settle in. Gave them time to adjust. Then, after dinner, mac and cheese over the fire, just like the old days, I turned on the projector. Old footage played against the side of the cabin. Christmas mornings. Beach trips. Sam learning to ride a bike while I ran beside him, nearly tripping. Mason asleep on my chest. Ellie on my shoulders, squealing with laughter. No narration. No speeches. Just memories. And somewhere in the middle of it, I saw Mason wipe his face. The power wasn't in the images. It was in what was missing from them. Michelle. She was always there, but just off screen. Taking the photo. Making the plan. Managing the moment. But I was in them. With them. And finally, they saw it. This was only the beginning. The next morning at the cabin was quiet in a way that felt earned, not awkward. The kids slept in, tangled in blankets like they used to when they were little. I sat on the porch with a mug of coffee, watching the fog lift off the lake. And for the first time since I'd left, I didn't feel like I was waiting for the other shoe to drop. I felt steady, grounded, ready. When they woke up, we ate pancakes and bacon at the old table with the wobble in the leg. No phones. No rush. Mason cracked a joke about my pancakes being aggressively fluffy, and Sam laughed so hard he snorted. Ellie leaned into my side like it was the most natural thing in the world. I didn't comment on it. I just let it be. After breakfast, I told them we were going for a walk. We followed the path down to the water, the same one I'd walked with my dad when I was their age. We sat on a fallen log, and I finally said the thing I'd been rehearsing for weeks, not as a speech, but as a truth. I didn't leave because I don't love you, I said. I left because I stopped loving myself in that house. And I didn't want you growing up thinking that was normal. Mason stared at the lake. Sam picked at a splinter on the log. Ellie watched my face like she was memorizing it. I didn't know, Sam said quietly. I know, I said. That's not on you. Mason swallowed. Mom said you were punishing us. I nodded. I know she did. Were you? He asked. I shook my head. No. I was protecting something. Me. And eventually you. Ellie reached for my hand. Are you coming home now? I squeezed her fingers. Not the way things were. But I'm not disappearing again. That afternoon, I made the call. Michelle answered on the second ring. Are they okay? She asked immediately. They're fine, I said. They're with me. A beat. Greg, we need to talk. We are talking, I said. Just not the way you're used to. I told her I'd emailed her a document. The financial separation agreement Ben drafted. Temporary. Clear. Calm. No threats. No theatrics. You cut me off financially, I said. So I set boundaries. The cabin is mine. My accounts are mine. I'll continue supporting the kids directly. Transparently. You can't do this, she said, voice tight. This isn't how families work. It's how respect works, I said. You didn't lose me overnight. You spent years telling everyone I was optional. I listened. Silence. Then, softer, I said I was sorry. I know, I said. And I believe you're sorry it blew up. But remorse without change is just regret with better timing. She tried to pivot. Tears. The kids. The neighbors. The image. I didn't bite. There's more, I said. I'm filing for partial custody. Weekends and Wednesdays to start. We'll adjust if the kids want more time. Her breath caught. You're doing this to hurt me. I'm doing this so they have a father who isn't a joke, I said. And so I don't become one again. When I hung up, my hands were steady. The fallout was immediate. Michelle's Facebook went quiet, then disappeared. The PDA chat lit up with rumors until they died of boredom without fuel. People who had smiled politely at me for years suddenly started asking how I was doing. I kept my answers short and honest. I'm rebuilding. It was amazing how many nodded like they finally understood something they'd missed. At work, Luis promoted me to assistant manager. You've got a calm about you, he said. Customers trust it. I smiled and took the keys. At the library club, I read a new piece. This one wasn't about absence. It was about return. About choosing yourself without burning the bridge behind you. Arthur clapped first. The woman in her 60s wiped her eyes. The custody hearing was anticlimactic. No shouting. No theatrics. Just facts. Schedules. Receipts. A judge who listened. When it was over, the order was clear. The kids would be with me more. Michelle would have to adjust. The kids adjusted faster than anyone. Mason started coming over on Wednesdays, asking for help with college essays. You're good at this, he said, surprised. I smiled. I've been paying attention longer than you think. Sam brought his science projects to my place and actually wanted feedback. We built something together that didn't work the first time. We fixed it. He grinned like he'd won a medal. Ellie stopped asking if I was coming back and started asking what we were doing next. She redecorated my apartment with drawings taped to the fridge. One of them said, "Best Dad," in uneven letters. I put it in a frame. Michelle tried, in her way. She apologized to the kids. She asked to come to the cabin once, to talk. I agreed. Public place, coffee shop, neutral ground. She admitted she'd leaned on me without noticing. That she'd enjoyed being the center and assumed I'd always orbit. I told her I accepted the apology. I didn't promise more. Time did what it always does. It revealed patterns. It rewarded consistency. The kids saw who showed up. Over and over. Quietly. One afternoon, months later, we were all at the lake again, my weekend this time. Mason stood on the dock, phone in his pocket, and said, "Hey, remember that apron?" I nodded. "I told Mom it wasn't funny," he said. "I should have said it then." I put a hand on his shoulder. "You said it now." Sam laughed. "We should burn it." Ellie gasped. "No, we should make it into a dish towel." We laughed. I laughed until my sides hurt. That night, after they fell asleep, I sat on the porch and looked out at the water. I thought about the man at the grill, smiling through the heat while everyone laughed. I wished him well. I thanked him for getting me here. And I let him go. I didn't get revenge by yelling or humiliating anyone. I didn't expose messages or win arguments online. I did something better. I became undeniable. I became present without being expendable. I stopped auditioning for a role I already deserved. And the last thing I wrote in my journal that night was this: I was never the spare. I was the foundation. And when I stood up, everything finally found its balance.